everyone. Welcome to Marketing for Designers podcast. I'm your host, Masha Coyne, a messaging strategist and a copywriter for the interior design industry. I've been marketing for what feels like forever in my past career at some of the biggest global firms like KPMG and Deloitte. Today, I write website copy for designers using my signature voice of customer framework. If you're a designer looking to up your marketing game and attract premium clients, this podcast is for you. Each week on the show, we're going to be talking all things marketing, from branding to messaging to social media, SEO, and so much more, so you can have all the tools you need to grow your business and attract your dream clients. Welcome back to Marketing for Designers podcast. On this podcast, we talk about all things marketing. So the whole idea of this podcast is to help you market your business more effectively. To do that, it's important to be in the loop, in the know of what are some of the effective ways, channels, and initiatives that are out there. Once you know about them, it's a little easier to determine which ones are the right fit for your business, which would make the biggest impact on your business. So today, I'm bringing a guest who is an ad strategist. If you've ever wondered whether Facebook or Instagram ads are for you, you'll find this episode interesting. So my guest today is Carolyn Fagerholm. Carolyn is a Meta and Facebook and Instagram ad strategist and one-woman show behind CMF and Company. She's passionate about helping entrepreneurs take advantage of Meta ads without becoming overwhelmed or frustrated by the process. Outside of the business, Carolyn is a professional singer and actress, as well as a coffee lover and avid reader. Welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. And I loved our little chat right before we hit recording because I feel like interior designers would be so curious to know about ads. I don't know how many people have actually tried running ads, if they've done it right. And I'm very excited to kind of provide this platform for this topic and to basically explain that's what it's all about. This is how you do it. Here's how you decide if it's for me. So I think it's going to be a fun discussion.
Yeah, and that's the best way, I think, to go into learning about ads. There's so much information out there. It's easy to get overwhelmed, and some of it is a little outdated. It changes over the years, just like everything in marketing. You know, a couple of years ago, would anybody have thought about a reel? What's a reel? You know,
seriously.
The same thing applies for ads. What was working some years ago has changed now. And so I love to come in and help people start from the beginning and say, okay, here's what's going on. And here's how you can start to get your feet wet.
Perfect. And that's the way I like looking at it, that, you know, you're kind of taking the overwhelm out of it, because I feel like when we think about ads, immediately, at least for me, I kind of think, well, it's very techy and I have to have this kind of knowledge of how Facebook and Instagram on the back end of things work. But I'm assuming you're going to help us understand that it's not so, and it's a lot easier maybe than we typically think of it.
Yeah, I totally understand feeling overwhelmed. That is fair. There's even when I'm an ads manager, sometimes I'm going, okay, wait, which button? It's totally understandable. But it's once you break it down, especially when you're first starting out looking at campaigns, there's just to get a basic understanding. It's not all that much.
Perfect. So Carolyn, why don't we jump right in and let's do kind of like an introduction to Meta ads. But before we do that, Meta is both Facebook and Instagram, right? Why don't you explain it a little better?
So Meta, if you're not familiar, it's the conglomerate of platforms under the Meta umbrella. The biggest ones are Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, Threads, WhatsApp, Meta Quest. Those are the big platforms under Meta. I use it interchangeably. I think a lot of people do when we talk about Facebook and Instagram or Meta. But the fabulous thing is when you're running ads through Business Manager with Meta, you have all of those platforms available to you. You can run ads on Facebook and Instagram and Messenger at the same time.
I didn't realize that it has even Messenger and WhatsApp and all those things kind of rolled under it.
Yes. So you might have to run, I have not with any of my clients run ads on Threads yet, but Messenger is definitely available to you. Now, you don't have to run ads across all those platforms if you don't want to, but they're all available to you. I think some people, they're focused on their platform. I know you mentioned that interior designers, you guys are all about Instagram, which is fabulous and lots of eye candy, but you can actually use Facebook as well.
And okay, that's good to know. And when you just mentioned business manager, that's kind of under Facebook, right? So you go to one place and that's where you create your ads, and we'll talk more about specifics. And it kind of goes from one space into different channels.
Yeah. So if you've ever popped into your business page through Instagram, Facebook, and you go to business manager, where you can do things like schedule your posts and look at your engagement, things like that. If you go to the side menu, it changes the layout sometimes. So I don't want to get too specific. If people are, listening a couple months later, might not be in the exact same spot. But if you go over to the menu, you can pop down and you'll find Ads Manager. And over there, that's where you would run your campaigns. I know that Meta is very big on the, they make it a little easy button. They're like, would you like to boost a post? That's a little different than what we're talking about today, to be clear. Boosting a post, those do end up in Ads Manager, but they make it really, really easy for you. They put the buttons right there. I know when you're creating a post as a business. What I'm talking about today is mainly focusing on going into Ads Manager and really building a campaign. Boosting a post is simpler. It's easier. They have much more or many more options available to you than they used to. I think boosting a post used to be not as effective, depending, on what you were. Of course, they still worked. I don't want to get into it too much, but it was more different than it is now. But what we're talking about today, I'm not so much focused on a boosted post. I'm talking about getting into Ads Manager, really making a plan and planning a campaign.
I like that, and I'm glad you talked about this, tiny distinction, because I've boosted a post in the past. If I see like a post that's doing really well, I would boost it. Again, not sure how effective it is. Like you said yourself, I am not sure, but I wasn't really looking at it like that. I wasn't really tracking the success of that. But it's a good thing to know that we're talking about something else. We're talking about specific Facebook and Instagram ads that are more intentional, that are more strategic. So why don't we get started by explaining, well, what are these meta ads and how are they different from other marketing initiatives that we put out there, or other marketing content?
Yeah. So an ad, you'll see them pop up when you're scrolling through Instagram, just in your feed or on stories. Sometimes there are lots of different placements available to you, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But when you're running meta ads, it's nice that they are just right there. They're in the platform. It's not like a pop-up on a website. Sometimes when I talk about ads, people think of that. They think of the spammy stuff, and they're, clicking all over the blog post, trying to get out, just trying to get to the recipe on the blog, trying to find their dinner. That's not what those are. They're right in the app. You can scroll right past. Sometimes you have to wait for a story one for a minute or two, but they are all ads on Meta's platforms. Again, Facebook, Instagram, etc.
So they blend in with the rest of the posts, and they look very similar. It might just say like a sponsored post or something else,
most
right?
of the time.
Okay, sounds good. So kind of very organic marketing, because it blends in with the rest of the content that you're seeing in your feed.
Yeah, you can be, I hesitate to say sneaky, because we're not trying to trick people or anything like that. I think when people hear the word ad, sometimes they feel very gross, like, oh no, that's slimy. And it's not really all that different than organic marketing. It's just post that you have put some money behind.
Oh, I like the way to think about it. You put some money behind it. So what is the goal of ads? Why should interior designers consider running ads for their business?
Well, another great thing about meta ads, and we'll talk a little bit about the structure of when you set them up, you have lots of different goals or objectives available to you. I think when people first think of ads, They just think of them in terms of getting sales, which of course you can do, but you can also do a lot of other cool things like just drive traffic to a website just to get some more eyes over there. You could run ads to a messenger campaign if you want somebody to start messaging you. You could run ads to a video view campaign. This is a great one, to get people to watch a video, but then you're warming up that audience. And we'll talk about audiences in a little bit too.
Yeah, that's an important element of that. But I'm glad that you're bringing this to our attention, that it's not, because yeah, you're right. When we talk about ads, we immediately think that it is to drive sales, but it's not. And if you have like a program or something else, I'm just thinking of an example that would be relevant to interior designers.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned your goal for your ads could be to drive traffic to a website. Yeah. It could also be, I'm assuming, to drive traffic to like a email sign up, right? If you want to grow your email list, which Absolutely. A lot of interior designers are right now thinking about growing their email list or even starting their email. So that could be the goal for to run ads, to get more eyes on something that you've created, or whether it's your website or newsletter, or maybe, I don't know, to your Instagram.
Yeah, you can run ads to get engagement on a social media page. That's a great one. There are way more what we call objectives, and I'll get into this pretty soon, just so that we all have an understanding of the ads like layout or the structure, so to speak. But there are so many objectives or goals available to you, and I think a lot of people miss out on using them. It's a great opportunity.
I like that. So who should consider running ads? Can you give us a couple of examples of, let's say you're an interior designer and you have specific objectives? Who should be considering that this initiative, running Facebook and Instagram ads, is for me? How do we determine that?
Well, it's kind of up to you. You can take advantage of ads at any point in the game. Now, your objective might change. If you are brand new, you are just starting out, would I jump into running ads to get sales right away? Probably not. I would stick to something like we were talking about with engagement or traffic, just to warm up your audiences a little bit. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what that means in just a little bit. But ads are really for everyone. I feel that a lot of people think that they need to be making, thousands, or they need have a 6-figure business before you're investing in ads. And it's not really the case. If you're brand new, you can still use ads. It's totally, totally fine. Now, if you are going to run ads to get sales, I'd probably wait just a little bit until you really have your foundations in place. You have solid sales funnels. You know that you are getting sales and you are making things consistently, or making money consistently. Then I jump into the sales campaigns. But like we were just talking about, there are so many other objectives that you can take advantage of, and they can really create a lot of power for you when you are ready to jump into those sales campaigns.
Perfect. Okay, so why don't we talk about how do we get started with ads, and what should we even consider before you get started?
Well, one thing, if you take away nothing from this podcast today, I highly, highly recommend that all business owners install the Facebook Pixel on their website. This is a little piece of code that you put on your website. It's the cookies. If you've ever gone to a website and it says, the little pop-up, do you accept the cookies? This is a part of that. And the pixel is what tracks the data. This is how we know how many people are getting to website. This is what's going to give us data so we can create audiences, aka who is going to see an ad in Facebook Manager. And Meta Ads Manager. See, I do it all the time. We flip back and forth between the two. But the longer that a pixel is on a website, the more data there is to work with. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world if you hold off and install it right before you're running ads, but when you have it on your website beforehand, you are gaining powerful data. You're gaining more information, so that when you are ready to jump into those ads, your pixel is seasoned, is what we call it. It's warm. It has some data to work with, as opposed to a brand new pixel that's just installed and it's only, a couple clicks are there.
Okay, that's interesting. What kind of data are we talking about? What are we tracking when we install this pixel, Facebook Pixel?
So the pixel is it tracks data about our visitors when they're on Meta platforms. So if somebody visits your website and you target in Ads Manager, you say, I want this ad to be seen by people who have been to my website. If they have tracking enabled, you can opt out of it these days on your phone. But if they have it enabled, if they have allowed data and they've allowed the cookies, then when they go back to Facebook and Instagram, if you have targeted an ad for people who have been on your website, they will see this ad.
Mm-hmm. So the objective of that is when you install this Facebook Pixel, it helps you be a little bit more strategic when it comes to actually starting to run ads, because you've got a lot more data and you can use that data before you create like powerful ads. Am I getting it right?
Precisely. Yeah. And there are lots of tutorials available on how to set that up. A lot of website hosting platforms like Wix or, the common ones, they might have tutorials and they make it pretty easy. So, but again, there are lots of tutorials and like step-by-steps on how to do it.
Cool. So that's step number one. What do we do next?
Let's just talk about the ad structure a little bit so that we know what we're talking about. When you go into Ads Manager and you say, okay, I'm going to create a campaign, what it's going to start with is the campaign level. It's going to ask you what your objective is or what your goal is. You have a lot that are available to you. We've mentioned some already. Video views, traffic, getting sales or leads. What this is telling Meta is what we're trying to accomplish. What do we want? So showing an ad to somebody to get a sale isn't necessarily the same thing as just getting eyes on a video. So it's really important that you pick an objective that really aligns to your goal. Really think about what you want the end result to be. Now, I know we talked about how when we think of ads, we think about sales a lot, but sometimes it helps to pick a different objective to start us out and think a little bit more in the long term. We might not jump into those sales ads right now, but by running ads to get engagement and video views or traffic on a website, that's going to help us when we are ready to jump into those sales ads later on.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So maybe sales may not be the objective that's relevant to interior designers, although I could be wrong. But let's say, can we run ads? Can our objective be something about brand awareness just to bring some more eyeballs? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I would recommend if you're looking for some brand awareness, just to start, I would really look into those video view ads or engagement campaigns, because that's going to help get some people to engage with your posts, and it's going to help you organically too. So let's say that at my campaign level, I have picked, I want to get engagement. Next step is it's going to take you to the ad set level. This is where we're deciding when our ads are going to run, because you don't have to run them indefinitely. You can set dates, how much we're going to spend per day, which again, that's in your control. And also very, very importantly, your audience. This is who is going to see your ad. So you can target people, what we call a cold audience, people who have never heard of you before, based on things like age range, interests, TV shows that they're watching, moms or dads, whoever you're looking for, something like that. You can also target people who are what we call a warmer audience. This is where that pixel comes into play, where you can say, I want this ad to be seen by people who have been on my website, or I want this ad to be seen by my followers, people who have engaged with a post. You can also create something really powerful called a lookalike audience, which is saying to Meta, hey, look at all these people who follow me. Show an ad to people who are similar to this.
I love this. And I feel like this is a very relevant one.
Yeah. To get those lookalike audiences to work well, though, you want to have enough people in those audience. You want to have enough pixel data from your website. You want to have enough followers on Instagram or people who have engaged with a post enough. So when we were talking about laying the groundwork, not jumping into getting the sales right away, if you've done something like run an engagement campaign and built up that audience, you can run another campaign to target those people who have already come into contact with you. They're already aware of who you are. They are a warmer audience and therefore a stronger lead for your business.
I like that. Tell me something. When you create this lookalike, it just caught my eye a little bit. When we're considering an audience, and let's say we're setting it up, when we think about lookalike audience, is there a way to look at, let's say, competitor or like a similar business and look at their audience? Or is that the wrong way to do that?
No, we can't do that. But you could target if you have somebody big in the field. But let's pivot a little bit. If I was going to run ads for a course creator or somebody who's a business coach, you could target a big name in that field like Marie Forleo, people who are interested in her, or Amy Porterfield. So I can't say, show this ad to their followers, but I can say, hey, I want this ad to be seen by people who are interested in that.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Sounds good. So now what else should we be considering in when we're looking at how ads are set up? So we looked at our objectives, we look at the timeline and when it's going to be set up, spend, audience. What else?
The next step from here, after we have all of that set up, is we'll go into the ad creative. This is the fun part for the creative designers. This is where you're going to be putting in your video or your carousel or your post, whatever it is. This is the fun part. And also your copy, of course, Ms. Fabulous Copywriter here. This is where that is going to be put in.
Perfect. Okay. And then you've created that. Let's say it is a carousel post or it is a video, then you've got your copy. I'm assuming with copy, there is there's a headline, then there's the body of the actual post, there's a call to action. Yeah. I'm making it up right now.
No, you're exactly right.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. And then, so now it looks like we've got our ad set up.
So from there, we're going to hit publish, and then the ad is going to enter what's kind of called the learning phase. This is when an ad is first running, and Meta, the algorithms that work behind the scenes with an ad, are kind of figuring out what to do with it. They're playing it with things a little bit. So you probably aren't going to see tons of results right away. Depending, it all depends. That's the unfortunate thing that ad managers have to say a lot. Like people ask, how much should I spend on this? What should I do? It depends. What's your goal? How is it performing? Things like that. But once an ad gets out of that learning phase, that's when you'll really start to see some traction.
And I'm assuming that's where you can talk to your manager, to your ad manager, if you're actually hiring somebody to run your ads. That's when you're like, okay, maybe we need to make some tweaks to the headline, or maybe we need to make tweaks to your audience. Yeah. Maybe these are not the right people. But when we talk about results, we're talking about the actual engagement, right? Engagement with the ad, or are we talking about the actual visits to the website if this was one of your goals or one of your objectives?
Depends on what kind of ad you're running. So if you are running an engagement campaign, your end result will be, the big one that we're going to look at is how many people are engaging. If you're running a traffic campaign, then that's going to be how many clicks are we getting to the website? If we're running an ad to get leads, how many people are we gaining on that email list, or downloading the freebie, whatever it is that we're using to get leads.
How long is a learning phase typically?
It depends. Once upon a time, it was around 3 days, but these days, I would let an ad sit for probably around 7 days. I'd say around there.
So in 7 days, you should have a good idea that whether it's working or not, and whether we need to make changes.
The famous ad manager answer. It depends. It depends on how it's running, how many, what the data is telling us. Do we need to let it sit for a little bit longer? Do we need to make changes now? It all depends on how that ad is running. And those, what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, will change based on what kind of campaign that you're running. So like we said, if you're running a traffic campaign, how many clicks are we getting? How many people on the list? Yada, yada.
And should we have a goal of some sort, an idea of, okay, we are running ads, we want to get X number of whatever that is, right? So like, how else are we going to know whether it was successful or not, right? So we're creating these KPIs, and I hate to throw in jargon, but we're creating these little goals. And then by the end of, let's say, a month, we're like, okay, we came under or we came over or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goal is going to be a big part of determining what you spend. People ask all the time, like, what do I spend? How much do I do? And whatever your goal is going to determine your ad spend. So, and it also plays a factor in what your goal is. For example, running a video views campaign, you can run it for a couple dollars a day. Now, if you are looking to get sales, then you're going to be spending much more than that, depending on your goal. If you want to make 6 figures off of a launch, you are going to be spending way more than somebody who is just looking for a couple sales at the end of the month. There are a lot of things that go into determining ad spend, but the big determining factor is, what is your goal? And it's okay to
and
go
what is your marketing budget?
something like an engagement campaign and not have a huge clear KPI of well, I want this many clicks on the post, or I want to gain this many followers. It's okay to have a range that you're comfortable with, or just be trying things out.
I like that. And I feel like I'm the kind of business owner that would go into it with a bit of an open mind in the beginning and say, okay, I'm not sure. I've never tried Facebook or Instagram ads. I'm not sure what to expect from my business. Yes, there's industry ranges and industry expectations, but going into it, I feel like I would be okay if my goal is to raise my brand awareness and to just get more not followers, but I guess more people that I would love to work with into my world, whatever that is, whether it's on Instagram or my email list or just to my website. I would want to be a little bit open-minded. Okay, let's see what we can expect during this month. And from there, after that month, I would set up clear KPIs. Okay, knowing what we know today, my goal would be, let's say, to reach, 50 people by the end of I don't know. Yeah. I'm making it up right now. But would that be the right way to look at it?
I think that's a great attitude to go in, especially if you're going to start with something like an engagement or those video views campaigns that I talk about. So many people miss out on the opportunity to use them. And another really important part of running ads is testing. Trying out different things, and which is one of the things that you don't necessarily get with a boosted post. Ideally, with a boosted post, you're going to see that something is doing well and it's gaining, and then you're going to boost it, but you only have that one. When I run an ads campaign, you can run under one campaign, let's say to get get engagement, you can run 2 different ad sets and try different audiences. Let's say, we're going to target moms of this age range. And then maybe in another ad set, you're going to try, I'm going to try and reach people who are interested in gardening. And I'm just throwing things out here. There could be overlap. You could one ad set for moms and one for dads. That's a little more clear. And then you would test and see who's engaging, which audience is performing better. And then maybe you'll take that information and say, okay, so now I know that moms, I was getting a lot of engagement from moms. Then when you're ready for that sales campaign, that audience performed well for you, and then you can take that a step down. Once you have audiences that work well for you, okay, let's look at the ad level. What creatives are performing well for me? Are carousels doing really well? Is a static post, one image doing well? And this is a hot tip. I highly recommend that everybody have some kind of video going. These days, just having a video, even if it's not necessarily your best performing ad, tends to keep ad costs lower for everyone.
With a video?
A video, yeah. Just having some kind of video there, even if it's not, necessarily getting the best results, for whatever reason, we could spend a whole other day talking about this, and how video has changed marketing and all of that, and TikTok and Reels and blah, blah, blah. Having a video creative of some kind seems to help people keep their ad costs lower.
Can we explore some examples of videos specifically for ads that could do well for interior designers? Like from the top of my head, I'm thinking something like an introduction to a design firm, or should it be more, I don't know, like what are some of the examples that interior designers could do with video?
Well, this is a great thing that you could test. And you could do this with a video views campaign. Take the best performing one, put it into a sales campaign. But you could do things like walk around your office. You could show some work that you've done for a client, if that's okay. Introduce them to you and what you do a little bit. Whatever you could think of, if you can put it in a video. Now, keep in mind, there is something called the meta ads policy, which a lot of people forget about. Interior designers don't have to, everybody should look through it before they run ads, or your ads manager should be staying on top of it. I know I brush through every couple weeks just to make sure that I catch any changes, because things change. But a lot of people get tripped up with this in the like health and wellness space. That's one you have to be really careful of. But make sure that you know what those rules are. And as long as you're within those rules, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. And a lot of people find these days just having a casual reel, something that looks like a reel, looks like organic, that you're scrolling through Instagram, does really well. So it could be as simple as one of the reels that you've already made. You can take that and put it into your ad campaigns. It's not, ads aren't necessarily going to mean creating like tons and tons of other content.
Yeah. So I feel like if I'm hearing you accurately, you don't need professional video equipment and hiring a videographer. It can literally be like a day in the life.
Absolutely.
Or it could be, I'm currently on this project and this is what we're going through, and kind of showcasing your process, your interior design process. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's a site visit. It could be anything that you typically post in a video format on your Instagram or on your stories to kind of showcase the human side of your brand. Yep. And obviously adhering to all those guidelines, and don't show up naked to your videos. Yeah. That's probably a good thing to keep in mind. But but it could be anything. It doesn't have to be like a huge investment to create that video.
No, and a lot of people find that something that looks really organic and is, just something they're going to see scrolling works really well.
That's right. Because you don't want to show up like it's a true ad. You want it to show up organically, like a regular content that you would post for your interior design business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's important to keep in mind, even though, we all have businesses, my whole business is, social media focused, and we use it for so many different ways. Now, ultimately, it was created for entertainment. People log on to Instagram and Facebook, to check in with their friends, to be entertained. They're not really there because they want to be sold to. So when you have something, an ad creative that looks really organic, really simple, sometimes those perform really well. It can be as easy as you have somebody tape you while you're sitting at your computer, and then you throw up a little text with it.
I like that. And I think
it could be as simple as that. Again, you would have to test and find out, but it could be as easy as that. I think people hear video and it scares them a little bit, but it doesn't have to be, an Oscar-winning production or something really, if you're really camera shy, that's okay. You can find ways to work around it.
We've had other podcast episodes where we talk about, if you are camera shy, there's other entry ways to video and content creation. But I think you made a really great point right now, that don't forget that the number one reason, or the number one, I guess, goal of these platforms was to entertain. So take that into consideration. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be all businessy. It could be something a lot more fun to kind of showcase the personality of your brand, and to really showcase, like I said, that human behind your brand, because at the end of the day, that also creates an emotional connection with your audience. And another thing that I do want to mention, that I feel like picking the audience is so important that we shouldn't overlook that. That's why I do just to let you know that I write website copy for interior designers, and a big part of my process is actually collecting audience insights. So I do a lot of client interviews, and that's where that information comes in, because you can use those insights. For example, if you've written your website copy, or if you hired somebody to do that, you've created that audience profile in the past. You have that information saved somewhere. So use that information when creating these ads to make sure that it's getting served. Yes. I don't know if that's the right terminology, that it's getting served to the right people, and not just using like simple information like, well, it's females between 30 and 50. There's Like you need to go, I think, a lot more granular when you're picking your audience.
Yeah, it's just like anything else that you do in your marketing. It's finding that sweet spot of large enough that it's going to be seen by enough people. Sometimes if you narrow it down too much and your audience is too specific, meta goes, this is only 100 people. And that's important to keep in mind if you are working locally. You might not get as specific with your audience because you're limited by your area. But then you have, the advantage of a small, intimate area. You're a part of the community. You can create a video ad walking through the park that everybody sees every day. There are advantages to that, but it is important to keep in mind. You still, creating those audiences, you want to test things and you want to know who you are speaking to. Messaging is so important in organic marketing and your ads. You want to know who you're talking to. You want to speak to your people.
Love that. Love that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about running ads that's important for our audience to know if they're just, let's say, if they're just starting out or maybe they tested it and didn't test enough or didn't give it enough time? Let me know if I missed anything.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot. One thing I'm going to mention, because they're really pushing a lot of like the AI and setting things automatic when you run an ad campaign, and that can really help. But sometimes you want to keep tabs on what it's actually doing. For example, I was setting up ads for a client in January, and Meta was suggesting things of like, oh, we can put music behind this ad. It's going to be so great. And the music that it selected was Jingle Bells. We were setting up this ad in January. So had I not been paying attention to that, if I had just kind of let things go, then I would have had an ad running with Jingle Bells in the background.
That's right. So do not rely on AI completely. You can leverage AI, but do not rely on it and check AI's work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go back, make sure that double check your work and make sure that things are running the way that you want them to.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, this is great. There's so much information. I made a ton of notes. I'm kind of curious to try that for my own business, and I hope interior designers give it a go and test it and be open-minded about it and experiment with what's working, what's not working. Carolyn, the question that I usually ask my guests, and hate to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if it's a fun one. If there's any kind of habit or a practice that you've implemented in your business that has been not only in your business, even personally, if there's something that you've integrated into your life or your business that has been game changing.
Wow. What's been game changing for me in my
personally or professionally? It doesn't have to be businessy.
Gosh, I'm trying to pick a good one. I'm really, I think something that I really try to be good about, I try to move every day first thing. I am a morning person. I feel like most people in the world are saying I am not a morning person. I am. I like to be up and at 'em. And moving first thing in the morning really helps me start out my day and helps me focus. I like to go on walks. And so while I'm on my walk, I often walk with my mom and we'll chat, or like I'll listen to a podcast, whatever, set myself up well for the day. Something in my business. I'm trying to come up with two good ones. I am big on what my business coach, Brandy Mouse, calls active marketing. So I spend a lot of time in Facebook groups looking, talking with people about ads and trying to find out, what people are really struggling with so that I can, keep that in mind in my own marketing. So really spending that time, being aware of what people are talking about and also actively looking for people who are looking for an ads manager as opposed to just, sitting back and letting the Instagram algorithm do whatever. It's not just about the posting. I like to go out there and find the people. Find the people who are looking.
Yeah, and that's such a good tip. So active marketing, it's kind of what you're actually doing, it's kind of like market research. You're paying attention to the comments, like what people are struggling. We do that in copywriting when we pay attention to what are the pain points and challenges that my ideal audience is experiencing, and then leveraging that and using that in your marketing, in your messaging. So very smart of you to do that. I love that you shared that that little bit. So Carolyn, if people are curious, if interior designers want to give meta ads a go, how can people find you and follow you and connect with you?
So I am on both Facebook and Instagram at my business page, CMF, which is my initials, CMF and Company. If you can spell my last name, I'm sure you'll put in the show notes. If you can spell Fagerholm, you can find me.
Perfect.
So
well, I hope.
Please send me a message if you have any questions. If you're curious, I'm happy to help people.
Amazing. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing so much great information.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Marketing for Designers. This is Masha Cohen signing off. See you next week.